Mr. LeBlanc, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Michael LeBlanc, DOC 445201, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to need you to speak up a little bit. I'm having a little hard time hearing you. So we're here for a revocation decision, Mr. LeBlanc. Do you have a revocation questionnaire there with you?
Ma'am?
Do you have the revocation questionnaire form in front of you, with you?
Yes,
Is that your signature at the bottom of that page dated July? I can't tell if that's July 13 or 17. Did you sign that paper in July of this year?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So based on your answers to those questions, sir, you're not eligible for appointed counsel. So we're ready to proceed this morning. Let me get to the right form. Okay. Mr. LeBlanc, you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole. I'm going to read the allegations against you, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Then we'll have a discussion about your plea. We also have joined us today is Agent Jay Guidry, who we asked to join us today, and we'll call him on him at the appropriate time for him to provide some information to us. So you're accused of violating the conditions of your parole, specifically condition number 1, you failed to report to probation and parole upon release. How do you plead, sir?
Not guilty, ma'am.
Okay.
With a statement. Okay.
Not guilty with a statement. Okay. Condition number 3, you absconded supervision on or about December 1st, 2022. Your whereabouts were unknown until the time of your arrest. How do you plead to violating condition number 3?
Not guilty, ma'am.
Okay. Condition number 4, you were arrested on or about December 28, 2022 by the U.S. Marshals in New Orleans and charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of a firearm with a controlled dangerous substance, and possession of MDMA. How do you plead to violation of condition number 4?
Yes, I was, ma'am.
How do you plead?
Guilty.
You plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am. I was caught with those things. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Condition number 5, you were arrested on or about December 28, 2022 by U.S. Marshals in New Orleans and charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of a firearm with a CDS, and possession of MDMA. How do you plead to violating condition number 5?
That's the same plea, ma'am.
Guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
I need you to say it.
Yes, ma'am. Guilty.
Say it. I need it. I need you to say it on the record.
Guilty, ma'am.
Okay. And then lastly, condition number 9, excuse me. You absconded supervision on or about December 1st, 2022. Your whereabouts were unknown until the time of your arrest. How do you plead to violating condition number 9?
Not guilty, ma'am.
Not guilty. Okay. So I noticed you pled today guilty to violating condition number 4.
Yes, ma'am.
And at your preliminary hearing, you pled not guilty to that. Tell us why you changed your plea.
Well, in actuality, I actually was caught with those things in my possession, but as far as being in a violation, that's why it was kind of misconstrued in me at, because when I was released from prison, I was released on a misdemeanor crime, which was a crime that I had took credit for time served for. And when they released me, they never had released me on any of the parole obligations. With that charge, as I signed out, the only piece of paper that I signed out to when I was released on that was synthetic marijuana charge, and I have those documents right here with me from River Bend. Here it is. I took 6 months credit for time served on September the 6th. Last year.
Well, let me just say this. I have in the record what you signed when you were released on May 12, 2022 is your certificate of release, your good time release certificate.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that, you agree to condition number 4, I will not engage in criminal activity, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, the other release, but this is the one we're speaking to today.
Okay, well, in reference of that release right there, they was going to release me May the 13th, as you just read and quoted, but they didn't release me. They seen that I had more charges pending. They came and took my papers back from me. Once they took the paper back from me, which was the diminution of sentence paper, they came, took it back from me on a day in May I was supposed to be released. And they held me over until this charge here was finalized as well. This charge here was finalized. So that's why it all threw me for a loop at, you know what I'm saying? Being as though that they came and took me, they came and took the paper, the diminution of paper from me, what I did sign for in May. And months later,
you pled guilty this morning to violating condition number 4.
I was actually pleading guilty to having it in my possession.
Right, which is violation of condition number 4.
I was trying to get an understanding with that, so it doesn't seem like I violated, because the way I see it, I was not.
Sorry, I understand. You seem to have some lack of understanding. But let me, before we go any further, I'd like to hear from Agent Jay Guidry. He has some other pressing matters he has to take care of today, so we'd like to go ahead and hear his testimony. Good morning, Mr. Guidry. Would you introduce yourself, tell us your name and where you work and your involvement in this case, if you don't mind, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jay, with probation and parole, currently assigned to the U.S. Marshals Task Force in New Orleans. Back in December, I was forwarded this case from the Baton Rouge U.S. Marshals, and through investigation techniques, I was able to locate Mr. LeBlanc at the Hilton Garden Inn on St. Peter Street in New Orleans in room 715. That was on December 28th, 22. Around 10 o'clock that morning, we made our way up to the room, and as we were about to approach the door, Mr. LeBlanc and another unidentified male were coming out. I was able to identify Mr. LeBlanc through the pictures I had, and he admitted that's who he was. And when we took him into custody, as he was being handcuffed, a black Smith & Wesson 9mm fell out of his sweatpants onto the floor. He was detained. He had a book sack with him. I searched the book sack. There was also another magazine for a .45 caliber handgun, which was not found on him. But there was also 2 plastic bags of ecstasy, which was a little over 100 grams. So multiple ecstasy pills. So he was taken into custody and booked into Orleans Parish Jail that day.
Okay, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I know you're involved in some other activities today, so we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Thank you, sir. That's all we'll hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
All right, Mr. LeBlanc.
Ma'am.
So I'm looking at your while I was listening to Agent Guidry, I was looking at your master prison record, and I do see you were released from in Madison Parish, May 13th, 2022. They have you listed as absconding in that status starting October 7th, 2022. And then we have the situation that Agent Guidry just spoke of that landed you back in the Orleans Justice Center in December of 2022.
That's where it's all misconstrued. I never was released in May. I was released November the 30th. I was released from jail November 30th, ma'am. I never got out in May. They came back and took the diminution of sentence paper from me on that date, saying that I had more charges on me.
Right. Well, you know, irregardless of that, you pled guilty this morning to violating the conditions of your parole. Questions? Okay, Mr. LeBlanc, we are prepared to vote this morning. I'll be voting first. I find you guilty of violating condition number 1, 3, 4, 5, and 9. So my vote today is to revoke your parole. Mr. Russian.
Mr. LeBlanc, Mr. Blanc, I'm voting, Mr. Blanc, based upon your testimony this morning, where you pled guilty to violating conditions 4 and 5 of your parole supervision contract. I revoke your supervision.
Mrs. Wise.
Mrs. LeBlanc, based on the testimonies at this hearing and your guilty plea to some of the allegations, my vote is to revoke as well.
So, Mr. LeBlanc, this morning your parole's been revoked. I think that concludes our business in the ascension. I want to thank Sergeant Whitaker for accommodating us. We're going to sign out at 8:39. Thank you so much.
Man, y'all bullshit, man. Y'all ain't heard nothing I was saying.